Okay, hello everybody. Today I'm talking about this book called You Can't Go Home Again by Thomas Wolfe. It was written in like the 30s. Actually, let me just look at this because I don't know. I might as well. I have the book on me. Oh, yeah, okay. So it was published in 1934. Sorry, it's like really dark in here. I don't really care though. I look cool and mysterious. This book was published in 1934, and it's about this author who's kind of like a personification of, Thomas Wolfe. It's like his alter ego, because it's kind of about, like, his first book in a way, and, like, how people reacted to it. Anyways, so it's about this author who's from this town in, like, Appalachians, and, he had, like, a good childhood. He liked his childhood. I think his, like, mom died. Yeah, his mom died, but, like, you know, he looks back on his town, like, with positive feelings. And then he goes back there after he finds success, in New York. And he goes back there, like, before his novel is published, but people know that it's going to be published. They're excited about it. They're excited for him. And he goes back, and he realizes that his town has changed, like, a lot. At this point in the story, it's before the Great Depression happened, so that's when the big economic boom is happening. His town has changed a lot, There's a lot of investors, big banks and stuff like that. His town is kind of having an economic boom of its own. There's, like, a lot of housing development stuff like that, and he's just kind of realized, like, my town has changed a lot, and it's not the same as it was in my childhood. And I can't go back to that again. Like, it'll never be like that again, because you can't reverse this much change. And then he goes back to New York. His book gets published. The Great Depression happens. Lots of stuff like that. And people back in his town are really mad about his book because it's about his town and, like, everything about his town, not just positive things, but just negative things and opinions about people. So people in his town really didn't like the book. So he never really went back there after his book was published because of that. And it kind of shows, like, him not being able to go back is kind of like him not being able to go back to his childhood and to his old town. He can't go home again physically and also just mentally. He's never gonna be back in that state again. That state of, like, childlike wonder and appreciation and, just reverence for the world around you. You can never really go back to that, unfortunately. And, like, throughout the book, he's always changing. I should mention the protagonist's name is George Weber. Anyways, through the book, George is always changing. And, he goes to England, and he hangs out with this other successful author guy, and through that he realizes that if he achieves success, he's never going to be able to be, like, a casual author again, and that fame isn't really a real reward. It kind of just drains you in a way. And he also goes to Germany, and this is like in the mid-30s, before World War II, but Hitler was in power. So he goes to Germany, and, he meets some people there who are not Nazis, by the way. And he kind of realizes through these people that, like, wow, like, Germany is not like it was, like, how I learned in school, like, it's not this whimsical place and whatever, like, there's actually bad stuff happening here to people, and he's, like, learning this through his friends and whatever. And then this, like, officer guy, like, tries tracking him down, and then he's like, okay, I'm going home. So he doesn't go home, but he goes back to New York. And, like, he kind of separates from his editor that he does really like. But he realizes that he just needs to start a new chapter. And then he can't keep, like, staying in this state because, through the book he's been changing, and then this is his big change. And he kind of, like, this is near the end of the book, and this is kind of where he says, like, the big thing, like, you can't go home again. you can't go home to a lot of these states, just states in time. You can't go home through time. Your home is going to be lost forever because time is constantly changing. So you need to make a new home in the present. And you can't go home again to the places that you envy, not just physically, but also like through time. Things especially when society's progressing very quickly, things change physically. Like buildings are torn down, buildings change, design changes, stuff like that. You just can't get it back. And I mean, like, photographs and stuff help with that. You can kind of stay in that state and look at it, but you can never be there again. You can never build those buildings again. You can never find those people again. You can't bring people back to life. Nor can you bring buildings back to life or states in time back. Those things are kind of lost in that state. And, he died in 1938, Thomas Wolfe. Which is, I don't know. Like, I feel like he had some good thoughts for not living that long, because he was only in his 30s. And I hope that he did go home when he died. I don't know. That's a little cheesy. But it's true, I did. I hope that he was able to experience those times again. Anyways, I think a lot of these ideas apply to my life now, because I'm kind of realizing that my town has changed a lot in the past 10 years, and, like, since my early childhood. Just, like, with the way it's going, and how crowded it's becoming. Not, like, with people living here, obviously. Like, I'm okay with that if people move here and appreciate it. But just with tourists, and kind of, like, just, like, the ideas that are going around and stuff that, like, oh, this place is perfect, this place is beautiful, ignoring how it takes, like, 10 hours to get, to triage in our hospital waiting room, and how, like, there's homeless people living behind the schools, just fun stuff like that. I don't know. Like, a lot of that is kind of being, like, passed up, for like, pleasing tourists. Like, they'd rather do that than actually take care of the town. And I've gradually noticed my town becoming more of, like, a tourist trap. Because we're in such a nice area, like, I guess we can't help that or something, or my town government can't help but do that, which is really unfortunate because people actually do live here. I don't know. And I've also just been thinking, like, I've always felt really emotionally connected to my childhood, and, like, it almost tears my heart out just, like, thinking about it, because, like, I'm faced with that fact that I can't go home again. I can't reverse my town to the state that it was in when it felt like an actual community. I can't go back to my childhood when, like, I felt like I belonged where I was, with my family and stuff. And I just, like, can't go back, to when I don't know. Well, I didn't really like my childhood. And childhood isn't always the best. But you can never go back to your childhood. You can never you can, like, feed your inner child or whatever. But, like, you'll never be able to be a kid again. Which is kind of a sad thing to think about. And specifically with abandoned buildings, because it's kind of my thing. You can never really, like, bring those buildings back, and you can, like, some people can remember the memories that they had in them, but you don't know about those memories. And you'll never be able to experience them for yourself, because now that building doesn't have a purpose anymore. It's just kind of a memorial for people. And, like, I specifically feel that with the old high school in my town, because, like, it's just, like, so unfortunate how it got, like, I don't know, just kind of sold off. And now it's just kind of sitting there, like, it's just really sad, because I know that, like, I'll never be able to go to high school there, even though, like, I always wanted to when I was little, even though it was, like, empty when I was little. Like, I always wanted to go there. I just thought it was such a cool building. And I have to be faced with the fact that, like, I don't know, I just can't go back to what felt like home. You know, I'm gonna have to make my new home in the future, and I'm going to have to wait and be patient to graduate high school to create the future that I want to. Because I know I'm not gonna find it here. I know that my home has been lost. And I know that I can't go back to my original home again. I have to make a new one, and hope for the best. Anyways, that's kind of like my rant book review. Well, I really liked the book. I didn't really give a book review, but I really liked the book because I agree with a lot of its ideas. You know, it kind of it agrees with me, which is why I like it. I just thought it was like a really interesting idea, and especially because since it's a book that was published like almost 100 years ago or like 90 years ago, it's interesting how I can apply those facets of it to modern life today. It's just I really like when I find ideas that are sort of immortal in a way. I just find that interesting. And I think this book is probably one of my favorite books now. I should make like a list of my favorite books because that would be interesting. Anyways, I think that's it. I don't really want to ramble on for too long. This lighting is really annoying me, but I don't want to turn my big light on because then that'll make me look ugly. Anyways, I think that's it. I feel like this is kind of like my first serious video. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm really doing. I'm just gonna, like, make whatever I want to. You know, make a home. Yeah.